perfect warlock, weapons and supplies. But you need a place to track your stuff, cause you're so disorganized. You click open the web page, you heard about a critical role, and now you're ready to kick some butt in that mine shot full of no's. It's TNT! TNT Beyond! Yeah, TNT! TNT Beyond! You got your stats, you got your swords, and you got your invisible wall. It's TNT! TNT! TNT Beyond!
Hello and welcome to this year's first development update and community Q&A session. I'm Adam Bradford, the product director for D&D Beyond. We're going to jump right in here like we always do, but I will wish everyone out there a happy new year. Thanks for joining us today. We've got some exciting updates, and as always, I will answer all the questions. Barely anything is off the table. So as we look at today's lineup, we're going to get into some feature requests and voting that we've recently put up, and we've had a very good response to. Really appreciate that out there and getting some good information. And then we have publicly shared our high-level feature roadmap for the first time, and we'll take a look at that and give you some more details about how that works and how that's going to work going forward. And then we do have a data update. We got some questions the last time that I started talking about how pages on the site were performing and how people were going and viewing those pages, and we saw some class and some race information coming into those pages. But then I made a comment about how those races or classes being the most viewed did not even remotely close mean that they were the most played or most selected, for characters. And so we're going to take a look at some comparisons for races and classes between those two things, because we got several questions about that. Then we'll talk about what development is in progress, what is upcoming, and then we will share some information about a survey that we ran over the holiday break that got a lot of responses. And we'll talk about how that information is helping us make some decisions about some upcoming features and functionality. So we'll get into that with character and monster summaries. And then, as always, there will be a Q&A roundup. So for each of these sections, I will probably stop for just a minute to see if we've got some questions collected. Lauren, Obo Crazy Urban, is in the chat right now. She is collecting all of that for me. So if you have a question, preface it with the word question to let her know that that's what's happening, and we'll take a look at those along the way. All right, here we go. Feature roadmap. We have gotten into kind of a new level of transparency here that we have been working to get towards for some time. And we really are in a place where we are comfortable to share a lot of these details very openly with the community. And we're thrilled to be in that place. And one of the things that we have done is put up a feature request, an actual place that you can go and request features. And so we're going to take a look at that if I choose the right one, hopefully. Yeah, here we go. So hopefully I've zoomed in enough in biggin, as Mike says. Yeah, here we go. So this page here, and this is through our Zendesk support provider. This was functionality that we were already getting as part of our support platform, and so we decided to leverage that. This is going to require, if you want to engage here, this is going to require a separate Zendesk account, so keep that in mind. But you can sign up for that, and you can use that Zendesk account across anybody that uses Zendesk, and a lot of companies out there use that. So, so if you sign up, you'll likely be able to use that in other places as well. But if you sign up here, you can create feature requests. So you can go to New Post and sign in. Oh, hopefully this is, man, I'm glad that password is obfuscated. All right, so then I can come in and I can add that I want a golden unicorn. And so it gives you similar posts. Nobody has similarly typed in that they want a golden unicorn yet, but you can do that here. And then you can provide details about what that feature request is. I can tell you that if I saw this one come through, we would certainly mark this as not planned. But yeah, so if you put something in here that other people like, they can view it. So looking at the encounter builder, the good news is encounter builder development is in progress, but this encounter builder was requested and shared. And you can see here that you can upvote and downvote as the community to help us understand what some of the most requested bits of functionality and features are. This is a single input, so I want to be clear about this. We're not necessarily just going off what we see here, because some people aren't going to create a Zendesk account. Some people aren't going to be aware of the existence of this voting portal, but this is another valuable input for us to make prioritization decisions. And we are going to continue, as always, to look at our forums. There are, I guess, millions of posts on the forums at this point, but there are millions of posts on the forums that we are constantly reviewing, constantly keeping a watch on to make sure that we are prioritizing based on the needs of the community going forward. But this is an excellent way for you to share new ideas and suggestions, and then to be able to vote on this. So you can see that the encounter builder, the character sheet, and the mobile app, a DM screen page has really picked up a lot of steam. So this is interesting information. This is absolutely a planned feature. I've talked about this a little bit, but seeing that it is gaining this much traction is making us pay attention to where that's going to end up falling on the roadmap. And so again, we get into several features here. You see that virtually the entire first page is planned. There are some things that are not, but as you guys vote, we will continue to consider all of these things as we go forward. But we will tag this stuff as planned or not planned accordingly. And then even if something is not planned, that doesn't mean that you don't vote for it, because if we see that people are voting for a whole lot of things, then even if something's not planned, we reserve the right to change our minds about whether something is planned or not. And that's kind of the point of this whole engagement. So please keep that in mind. An example of this would be, I think, if we had this back a year ago when I shared that it was not planned that we would really ever decide to provide an avenue for making homebrew base classes, I have since told you guys that we have changed our minds about that, because we see that many people are wanting that functionality. It is a very tough problem to solve with the pure infinite flexibility that could come with a completely customized base class, but it is something that we see is requested, and that has moved into a planned status as opposed to not planned. So you guys definitely let your voice be heard here in this feature requests portal. And then dovetailing from that, we have also shared our feature roadmap, the public feature roadmap. And again, this is the first time that we've done this. We've got several blocks of disclaimer information to the left here at the start of the page, that first of all, this really is just meant to inform the community. So a good bit of this information has been shared on now a weekly basis here in the dev updates. And this is compiling that and placing that in a single place that you can see very easily. You can do, you can just simply type dndbeyond.com/feature roadmap, I think is going to get you here. And so that is going to take you to this place, and you can always see what has been completed in about the last month, what is in progress on development, and what is upcoming and what is planned longer term. So some of the other disclaimers here: this list is not remotely exhaustive. This is not a comprehensive list at the entirety of the roadmap for D&D Beyond. The truth of that matter would be that if we sat here and entered every single thing that is on the list, first of all, I don't even have anybody that I want to spend that much time typing all this into Trello in this way, or even copying and pasting. But then the other thing is, I don't want to just completely overwhelm a new user that doesn't know anything about D&D Beyond coming into this roadmap with all the very, very finite details of everything that we have planned. But if you see something on this list, it is a very, very good bet that that is something that is going to get developed. And the only thing that would change that is community feedback. And so as we're engaging with the community, if we see that people don't want a certain thing, then it would come off of here. And if we continue to see that something is going to do good in the community, is going to help people play Dungeons and Dragons with more convenience and more customization, and allow DMs to captivate the players and their group more and more, those are the things that are going to end up here in the publicly shared roadmap. And you can see that completed last 30 days. For instance, we're going to jump back to this in a second, the holidays. And, so there's not going to be much in that column right now. As we start to get further into this year, we'll have more and more things show up there. But then in progress are the things that we are actually doing development for. So it means that there are several things from this upcoming list that I could consider that we are in progress internally on, because we are conceptualizing, we are documenting, we are experimenting, we're doing user testing. I could say that we're in progress on those things, but I think it's most helpful for the community for us to categorize those things as in progress are the things that we are actually writing code of some sort for. And so that's the distinction that we're making here. And so actually, while we're here, I'll just kind of show you guys. I'm moving over a pretty exciting element there into in progress, because even before I started the dev update here, I saw on a phone some swiping around. I saw some things starting to come together for the character sheet being added into our mobile beta. So I know that's an exciting thing out there, and code is actually being written for this, and that would be in the in progress category. You can see upcoming is what we would consider shorter term things. So these are things that are more or less next. So as our 3 different product teams start completing work, the upcoming category is where they would start pulling the next major features into that. Now, I will emphasize that we're not listing bug fixes or just course corrections anywhere in this roadmap. This is very much a feature roadmap. So all of the maintenance and the bug fixes and all of that will be happening all along the way here. And so if a team does wrap up something like our content team, when they wrap up site navigation, our mega menus, it's not necessarily that they're going to immediately be able to jump into the thing in the upcoming column. They might have some bug fixes that they're focusing on for a sprint or two, but then the next major feature would be pulled from that upcoming short-term category. And then finally, the planned category is longer-term things that are just not next, but they are confirmed to be planned at this point in time. And again, that's the column that we could see the most changes with, because that is either things getting deprioritized and falling out, or these new things coming along from the community that we think are exciting, that we think are going to add value to the platform. Those things are going to end up in the planned column here. So that is a little bit of a rundown of what's going on with the public roadmap. This will be updated on at least a monthly basis, and probably far more frequently than that. And you will see new things pop up here and there on this. This is a great place for you to go to understand where we are at least from a high-level prioritization standpoint, this is the place to go. All right, let's check in on questions real quick, see if we have any concerning any of the feature voting or the roadmap. So it looks like Fatui is how I'm going to try to say that, is asking, will you promote this more so people know about this or make a link to it on the main site? So this has been kind of promoted in an experimental fashion up to this point. But yes, there will be main site navigation. As you can see in progress, we have some site navigation development going on right now. As that starts to roll out, some of both the features request and voting, as well as the public roadmap, will get more visibility in that updated navigation scheme. Manstick 1986, interesting name. I like that one. Question, may have missed it, but what are the color markers on the roadmap and what do they stand for? That's a very good question. So we can take a look at that. So essentially, winter cleaning is a good example of this because in the description, it's talking about what was completed. Typically, what will end up in this column is you'll see more or less the changelog entry that hits the site will be updated here on the roadmap. But in the completed area here, a lot of these things didn't make a changelog because they were very, very minor things, but they were bugs that we've been, fixing. And there's a gigantic list. I can go through, show full description. This is just a small part of what was cleaned up over the December and through the holiday period. But the colors themselves here are so completed is this kind of gray color. So you'll see that. You'll see that the green is just indicating that something's in progress. Now, the columns themselves are doing this as well, but this in progress, some of our internal ways of tracking this, we're going to see if something is doing well, it's going to be in a green status. If it's not doing great, it's going to be in kind of a yellow status. And if it is doing poorly, it's going to be in a red status. But these things are in a green status in progress here. And then finally, let's see, this is a good one here. Winter cleaning. We've got characters, challenges, and content. And I've shared this a little bit before, but these are the 3 product development teams that we have in place here on D&D Beyond at this time. So when we started D&D Beyond, I guess we launched August 2017. So a year and a half ago or so. When, all the way through that, we had a single product development team on D&D Beyond that was about 4 or 5 developers. And we had that as our resource commitment for a long time. The team has started to grow, and as the team has grown, and as some of the functionality on D&D Beyond has grown, we have kind of divided those teams into 3 separate teams at this point. Can't talk about it a lot yet, but we have plans for future teams to also crop up as part of the overall D&D Beyond platform. But currently we have characters, challenges, and content. So characters handles character management, the character sheet, the character builder, really anything that's going on with characters. The challenges team is a new team that has formed because we are making this encounter builder. And then we are going to follow that up at some point this year with a monster builder. And so really anything that is challenging players is what is going to fall into that product category. And that team is going to handle the challenge management. The other team handles the character management. And then the content team handles all the game content that is the lifeblood of D&D Beyond. And it also handles homebrew and all those elements and some of the more general site features like listings. So that is the content team. So all 3 of these teams have their own individual roadmaps, and they are going to be really trying to march toward those as we are in this new year. So those are the colors. I think I've covered all the colors there. Let's see if we've got any other questions. So Adventure Fight. I know due times are out, but any chance we could get the percentage completed for each project in progress? That is that's a pretty sneaky question you got there, Mr. Adventure Fight. But and I understand the desire to have that percentage completed, but very similar to dates, percentage completed is going to be a misleading number because depending on how we factor that, and even internally, as I've mentioned, for instance, we have upcoming listed as the D&D Beyond Discord server. I can tell you we already have this server going. We are kicking tires. We are doing experimentation. We're talking through, we're adding channels. We're getting a lot of things ready from a conceptual level. So internally, I'm probably going to throw out a number like we're about 50% of the way here. But as soon as I say that, we're going to have some misunderstandings with exactly where we are with the community, and expectations are going to be set regardless of what percentages we start putting out there. So without being able to get into a more thorough description of what that percentage means, it's going to be misleading. And just like dates, it is going to lead to disappointment. And so no, that's not something that we plan to share. Again, we are very comfortable with sharing what we're working on and what's important, and that's what we're going to see here. All right. I think that's all the questions on that topic for now. Oh, and I love this art, by the way, because no one punches like Gaston. No one fights like Gaston. In a wrestling match, nobody bites like Gaston. Yeah, I don't know how this made it into the monster manual, but I love it. All right, moving on. Data update. Viewed versus selected. So taking a look at races, we have some interesting information starting to come out here. You can see that from the standpoint of people going to the compendium listing for these various races, that Elf is, by a pretty big margin, the top race that is viewed. And so lots of things can be derived from that potentially. They would all be guesses, of course, at this point, but elves are maybe just interesting to read about, but then not quite as many people want to play them as the people that want to play humans. You can see that the most selected races of the 8+ million characters that we have on D&D Beyond, that humans are the, always, this has been the case all the way back to the first edition of the game, but humans are always the most selected race. And you can see that they are read about, much less than that. Maybe that is because people feel like they know what a human is and don't need to read about it. That makes a lot of sense. But you can see some other potential correlations here with tieflings are kind of read and selected about the same. But then there are others that are selected quite a bit that you don't see people reading about. You can see that the popularity of the Eberron races to read about them has been absolutely huge comparatively, because you see all of those showing up here in the top 20 of what's being read about. And you can see that not quite on the selected side. We have Warforged and Changelings are selected, a very large amount. Now, this data is, it is looked at in a way that we're not just looking all the way back to say that, races came along before Eberron and were, pulled in, and that the data is skewed in that way. We're looking from, we're taking, inflection points from, okay, Eberron's released now, let's look at the data from there. But you can see that kind of from a trending perspective, this is what's most viewed versus what is most selected on characters in D&D Beyond. And then we have classes. And this one is a very interesting one. Unfortunately, the words are getting cut off here. But you can see that the Blood Hunter is the most read about class. but it is the least played class. And you can see that Fighter, for instance, is chosen the most, as it always is. Human Fighter is the most popular combination. So when that is selected for Fighter, you see that Fighter is read about the fourth most here. You can see Warlock is high on both sides of this. You can see that Druid is read about a great deal, but it is selected one of the fewest times, very similar to Blood Hunter here. And so there's some interesting things that we can start to consider about this. Are people interested in druids and want to read about them, but they find that whatever they are reading about is not what they want to play, or the mechanics don't match the style that they want it to? Are they unhappy with where the class is balance-wise? Are they just simply confused about what druids do and therefore want to read about them to find out more about them? There are all kinds of things that we could speculate, but it would be really hard to tie it down to anything, even especially any one thing, but any several things, because we just don't have enough information at this point. But even so, I think it's fascinating to look at something like the fact that the Blood Hunter is viewed and viewed and viewed. Critters are ravenous, I would say. And so lots of views on the Blood Hunter, and it is, so far the least played class out of this content, which again makes a lot of sense since it's not one of the official classes. But then with Druid, for instance, the least played official class, or least selected official class on D&D Beyond, but it's one of the most read about classes that we have. All right, do we have any questions about... okay. Yeah, we've got Awkward Bowman. Is there a way you can track how long the average person spends viewing the page? Yes, we have that capability to track that. I don't have any of those numbers in front of me. That is a great idea for a future dev update. We can perhaps take a look at some of the more popular pages and what the average time per page is for those, and what session lengths are. We definitely have all that information, and we can potentially take a look at that in a future dev update. Any other questions on the data here? As always, if you have requests about things that you're interested in seeing, share those. Most of the time we share things that we get questions about. This is an example of that. We got a lot of questions about viewed versus selected. We can dig into that data, and we can share that here in the dev update. All right, got another question. Let's see. Okay. Endless dex. You have endless dexterity. That's good. Can we get data on created characters versus played characters? And basically saying, I know that I made a bunch of cool characters that never saw a table. And yeah, we could potentially do that at some point. That's a little bit, yeah, I'm trying to think. There are some parameters we would have to put around that, but we do have parameters that we try to use that demonstrate, that a character is played versus just simply created. So it is definitely possible. It's something that we could potentially do in the future. I think part of the issue with that is, of course, that's not foolproof, but we can share some of the criteria. Things like, have hit points been updated? Have, those kind of things are the things that we use to do that. So we can look into that and potentially share that in the future. Fatui, could we take a look at which adventure is most viewed? Yes, we can definitely do that. That's something that we can easily share next time, or sometime this month. I think that would be a really easy one for us to do. And I'm fairly certain the last time that I looked anyway, it was Curse of Strahd. So we'll see if that's changed by the time that comes around. And then Spammerooski, do you ever separate characters created by DMs versus characters in campaigns? No, there's not an incredibly easy way for us to do that at this time. Some of the organization changes that we have upcoming for the My Characters section, as well as some of the organization that we're going to include in the campaigns page to allow Dungeon Masters to designate certain characters as non-player characters, that would help with that when that time comes. All right. Any other questions? I don't think so there. We will move on. So, what is in progress? Talking a little bit more about that. We do have transition development going on right now. We are joining fandom, if you haven't heard the news. Very excited about this transition. It is going to allow us to make D&D Beyond everything that, I've always dreamed for it to be. Very excited about that coming into this new year. If you are in Europe at this point in time, I strongly encourage you, personally plead with you, to check your email or to visit the website. If you happen to be watching today, you probably have been to the website, but I encourage you to opt into the data transfer that's going to happen when the companies change hands here, because if not, because of the GDPR regulations in Europe, we are going to have to delete that data. There's just no way around that. We will have a reclamation service where we can, our friends at Twitch, we will be able to, retrieve that data for at least about a year there. But to ensure that there's just no interruptions and nothing happens of any sort, I encourage you to opt into that email or the message on the website, because otherwise very soon we're going to have to take that legal action that is required of us. But other than that, transition development is going great, and we're looking forward to our new home. Site navigation, mega menus in progress. We're making some decisions about where some things are going to come in the flow of that, and then we're going to get into the development of that and finishing that up. Encounter Builder, before the break, was a little bit surprised. I was walking behind one of our developers' desks, and I mentioned to him, I said, hey, I haven't seen that mock yet. Like, what is this? And he's like, oh, no, this is real. This is live stuff right here. And I was actually pleasantly surprised at the amount of progress that I was already seeing there. So again, not to try to tease it too much to you folks, but we are making progress on the first stages of the Encounter Builder, and we want to get a development alpha out to our subscribers as quickly as we can. And that is by no means going to be a finalized product. I want to be very clear there. We are trying to get this out into the community's hands early, where we can get the feedback that we need to make this what it needs to be. So really, really excited about the approach, and I'm starting to see some things coming together there. It's going to be an exciting time. All right, and then moving to in progress for the first time, the character sheet is coming to the mobile beta. We've been sharing that for a little while, and again, just before the development update today, I saw some actual things on a phone screen. And so this is happening, and we're obviously have no ETA for when it's going to complete and when it's going to be available in the beta, but it is in progress as of now. Let's see. Okay, we got a question about that already. So let's see. Not half wing. How do I opt in if I'm in Europe? I don't remember if I already did or not. I'm on the website like 100 times a day. If you're on the website 100 times a day, it is very likely that you have already opted in. But you also, if you need to know, and I encourage you to try to find this out, you can contact our support team and they will be able to tell you. Unfortunately, there's not a great way that we can kind of just share that information, because again, that kind of defeats the purpose of everything that's going on with GDPR. But our support team, if they can, validate your identity, will be able to tell you explicitly whether you've opted in or not. Another way to check is you should have received an email that is based on the email address that is on your D&D Beyond account. and it's going to be from D&D Beyond. It's going to have a big button in the email. As long as you are hitting that button in the email, you should be opted in with no problems. SPE825 asks, is there anything special needed to get in on the alpha? Maybe be a subscriber or something. So yes, just as sharing here, the alpha is for subscribers. And we're doing that for several reasons that, to be honest, are not monetarily motivated. We want to make sure that subscribers ensure that we have invested users that are going to be providing the feedback, but then it also means that these are users that understand the platform on some level. We don't want a new user coming to D&D Beyond and just simply falling into a very unfinished encounter builder, because that can be very confusing, and it can show that first impression is going to be skewed by that. So yes, if you are a hero tier or master tier subscriber of any kind, you are going to be able to participate in the alpha, and we will provide more details to everyone via email, via the site, via dev updates. It will be on all of our distribution channels when the time comes. All right, let's see. Upcoming. So we're doing a D&D Beyond Discord server. So I'm really looking forward to this. Have not been a Discord user myself personally in the past, but I have started using it as a result of this, and I'm pretty impressed, and I think it is a great way to connect with the community. So we're going to have some special things, hopefully subscriber-only channels. We're going to have some channels where the development team and myself, that we jump in and communicate with the community, and you guys are going to have some level of access to be able to do that with us. So looking forward to that. It's also going to be a great place to play some games. I'm fascinated by the ways that people are figuring out to play Dungeons and Dragons these days. And so the Discord server is going to be a great place for that. We'll have more news on that hopefully soon. Content management. This is our, what used to be called source management. That is upcoming. And when I say this is upcoming, this is one of those things that we've actually been working with quite a while in the conceptual phase, getting high fidelity mocks together. We are ready to go from that standpoint, and we are going to start the development as soon as the team frees up to be able to do that. Additional login providers shared this information last time, but we are going to this year introduce additional ways to create a D&D Beyond account, and additional accounts that you can link to your D&D Beyond account. This is, again, I keep saying additional, because Twitch is not going away. Everything, you will still be able to log in with Twitch. You will still be able to create accounts with Twitch, but you will just simply also be able to do that with Google and Facebook and some others. So that is going to come again at some point this year. And then also hitting this list at this point is the My Characters page updates. We are going to do some things there to help you sort, filter, and organize your characters in a better way, and hopefully have an improved visual layout and some information for you there on your My Characters page. And then the other things that we're going to jump into that are kind of right after these things, accessibility updates. For instance, the Encounter Builder is the first feature that we are building from the ground up. Incredibly conscious of screen reader technology, and we're trying to use it as a proof of concept for being able to incorporate that into other parts of D&D Beyond. So we're really putting quite the focus on accessibility as we're starting to move into this new year. So I'm very excited about that. Character Builder overhaul, removing a lot of the edit capability from the builder and just putting it directly into the character sheet. That's something we're going to get into. AL validation for your characters, making sure that you're following the guidelines for AL character creation. That is upcoming. Monster Builder, homebrew revamp, exciting things in store on the upcoming. Let's see, we've got some more questions. Okay, Fatui. Fatui is asking all the questions. Will there be subscriber perks on the Discord server? The current plan is yes, but we'll have to see how that shakes out. Not sure if that's going to be available immediately when we make the server available publicly, but yes, we do target having subscriber perks on the Discord server. Can't share exactly what those are yet. Exoloot. Is it possible to connect multiple login providers to one account? Yes, you're going to be able to, just connect different accounts to your single D&D Beyond account. Ladred, any news on the translation in other languages? No news that I can share yet on this other than we are working on this and we want to make this happen. And we've just got some complications that we've got to iron out before we're able to really move forward on that. And most of those are just very business related and not development related. So we're trying to get those things ironed out where we can move forward with translations. I am very confident that you will see the first wave of those hitting this year, though. Cyberwolf 1201. Let's see, we'll probably be answered with the Monster Builder slide. Yeah, I'm going to save that one. I'll definitely come back to that question. Dagobah 46, will the Encounter Builder include an initiative tracker? I'm trying to figure out how to answer that question because there will be an initiative tracker, but it depends on what your definition of Encounter Builder is. So we consider creating the encounter initially to be the Encounter Builder, and then there is a separate view that is the encounter itself. And so in that encounter itself, yes, the plan is for initiative tracking to be available there. We're going to have to see, of course, how that comes in the phasing of all this because of the approach we're taking. And since we're getting things out very early to the community, I'm not sure when initiative tracking is going to be included, but it is part of the overall scope of what we're trying to accomplish there, for sure. Helix Faust, can we get a drag and drop for characters between campaigns for DMs? I might need a little more information on that one. I think you're asking, can we move characters from campaign A to campaign B by a DM? And if that's the case, that is not something that we have currently had much of a use case for. So if that is something that you do have a use case for, I encourage you to share that on our forums and explain a little bit more about what you mean, or even in the feature request voting portal. But go into some detail for us where we can understand that a little bit more and understand the need. Manstick 1986, is there any plan to allow an owned campaign book to be added to my campaign page to share maps and handouts with the players? That's interesting functionality. That's another one I encourage you to maybe submit as a request and see how the community feels about that, or share that on our forums. There are plans to do something similar to that, but not in exactly the path that you're talking about there. So, but yeah, it's good feedback. If you continue to share that, we'll see if others feel the same. Gelmore 49, for AL validation, will there be a way to toggle specific options to the account for certificates and DM rewards that allow options outside the player's handbook +1? Going to have to dig into that a little bit more. The idea is, yes, we're going to support whatever is needed for AL play. And if that is valid for AL play, then yes, we would support it. Agent Prometheus, what features will we see in the alpha version of the Encounter Builder? Not ready to share any of that information quite yet. We're still making some decisions on what the critical mass point is for what is going to be usable and testable and feedbackable. Once I genuinely just can't answer the question because we don't know exactly what that point is going to be yet. All right, anything else? I think that's it maybe for now. All right, moving on. So we ran a little survey over the holidays, got thousands of responses, really great response, appreciative of that. But talking about running a monster, what kinds of information do you need to see? Always, sometimes, never, and anything in between all those. And what you're seeing here, I tried to think of some ways to visually represent this and where it wasn't going to be too confusing to everyone. So basically, we kind of weighted those responses is what you're seeing here. And you're seeing that, for instance, anything that is getting around that 6,000, range or whatever there, that is very much in a place where, hey, a lot of people are wanting to see this always. This is, really, really important information. And then, we kind of come down from there. So as you can see, the monster name, obviously that makes a lot of sense that would be important information. Armor class and hit points were the top thing that we had. So armor class and hit points, we're going to be trying to get those into as many views as we possibly can. And then you get ability scores and saving throws are right up there next after that. And so this is not unexpected for me, for instance, but it is really good to have some engagement with the community and get some validation on those thoughts. You can see in the middle section here that we have damage modifiers, resistance, immunity, vulnerability. All of those things are also pretty high there. But we also, for factors like that, it is difficult to display that information in a very short summarized form. And so we're taking this into account and we're trying to see if there's anything we can do with it. Or if there's not, we're trying to figure out ways that you can get to that information very, very quickly, even if it's not in the at a glance. And the same would apply for some of the other very highly rated and weighted, elements over here to the right of this chart, which would be your special qualities, actions, reactions, legendary actions. Of course, it makes sense that you would want to see all the actions for a particular creature as you're running that creature. It also doesn't make any feasible sense for us to be able to have a standard format for something that we can have reliable sizing or anything else like that when some monsters have 10 actions and some monsters have 1 action and anything in between that. And that's not even to mention all the information that has to be included in an action. So either way, again, this is incredibly helpful information for us to understand what is valuable and what needs to be very easily accessible. But this helps us see what makes the cut when it comes to at a glance, and then what is going to have to be positioned in that easily accessible sidebar that is going to be available. So just wanted to show that, again, the engagement here is wonderful. We're going to continue to do a lot of this stuff to try to understand what the community is thinking on these topics. And this was very, very helpful. And for us, this ended up getting into something, we shared this on Twitter, but essentially we're looking for a way to have summary information that has some kind of standardization between player characters and the monsters, where we can establish a familiar format for this. And so you can see that we're going to have, hopefully 3 different styles of view. And the very likely scenario is that, I'm not sure if you guys can see a mouse or not there, but that this, what is called compact right here view, is very likely to be the default for a lot of this display. So that's kind of the stub card that is going to be the default. And very similar, if you guys have ever seen in Google, we're working on charters. on Google, if you have ever seen the like the cozy, compact, comfortable kind of views there, and that toggling back and forth between, the idea would be that you can toggle pretty easily in a particular view back between these three positions. And so again, as I was earlier referring to, with the encounter builder, once I've built an encounter and then I'm viewing and trying to use that encounter, in that scenario, I might want to use this expanded view that shows me as much information as I possibly can, because maybe I'm only running 3 creatures and then I've got my 5 PCs there, and the expanded is going to show me the most. You can see in the expanded view that a lot of this is more or less based on a lot of the initiative cards that we've seen out in the community for years now. And so we're trying to replicate that kind of element here, where you can see the things that you need to see at a glance, and then you can see the other things in the sidebar. So the idea, once we get there, is that if I'm looking at my player character or my monster in that encounter, first of all, Briv would never fight a brass dragon, ever, because brass dragons are his favorite. But if this was happening, you could click on hit points in this section, and then the sidebar would emerge, and you would be able to edit those hit points directly in the sidebar, just like you can on the character sheet. And so you can get to any of that information quickly. If you click on armor class, it's going to take you to armor class and the defenses and all that kind of information. And what I mean by that is being able to edit and modify the armor class. If I click on the saves, it's going to show the full information about that save. So all of that information is going to be easily accessible in the sidebar, but we're trying to figure out what the right mix is for at a glance versus what is tucked into that sidebar. So this is, again, early, and this is a starting point. We got a question earlier that I'll come back to now, which is, let's see, let me find the question. It was asked, on these cards, in these summary views, how are the primary abilities and attacks determined? So it really is 4 primary. And again, this can change over time, but it's the highest to hit and the highest damage values. So we're basically looking for the combination of those 2 things to determine what a primary attack would be. And then from there, a primary ability modifier, obviously for Briv as a fighter barbarian, that is going to end up being, based on the primary ability score for that class. It's going to be strength based. So if he's a battle master, that's the kind of thing that we're calling out here. Now, I can tell you, Briv is a bad example, because for Briv, it is very likely that that primary ability modifier and the primary ability DC, he has no abilities that tie off of that. That is going to probably show for spellcasters there. It's going to say, and in that case, primary would be whatever the highest is for that. But it would be, clicking into that for a spellcaster, and you can see all the details of what's going on. For more martial-oriented characters, or characters that don't have save DCs associated, we're going to use some other information in those parts of the summary view there. All right. Any questions about this? I really like to see that in the DM screen. Well, that would be the point for sure. So the idea here is we are trying to get to a place where when you see character or monster summary information, you are familiar with that format, you know what you're looking for, you know the expected behavior of clicking on the different parts of it, and that would theoretically go through the My Characters page, it would go through the campaigns page, it would go through the encounter page, it would go into any kind of joining of those elements into a DM page. All of that is the point of these views, and we're trying to kind of establish some standards here. Myth Epic Weaver, how are we doing on time? Not well. Will these monster summaries be viewable via the Twitch extension while streaming? We're still determining exactly how that's going to work. All right, I've got to fly. We've only got 5 minutes left. New year, lots to talk about. Upcoming schedule. So in January, the Twitch schedule, we are back from the holiday break. We are back this week with Todd Talks and then obviously the dev update. We had to cancel Heroes of the Veil this week, and now I have some information and updates on the Heroes of the Veil show. Unfortunately, I've got some good and bad news. So like we always do, we're going to start with the bad news. The bad news is that Mike Merles is going to have to step away as the Dungeon Master for the show. And Shelly Mazanoble is also going to have to step away from the show. And that's very bad news for us, and we're sad about that. The good news is they are stepping away for reasons and projects that are going to be incredibly exciting for D&D fans everywhere. So very good news there. And then the other good news is that our new Dungeon Master for Heroes of the Veil is going to be Mr. Todd Kenrick. So he is going to be stepping in to Dungeon Master the show, and we are going to have a few other announcements in between now and the next couple of weeks, and we intend to return with Heroes of the Veil on Wednesday, January 23rd. So that is when we're going to come back. And when we do, Dungeon Master Todd Kenrick is going to be taking over with the show. The rest of the cast remains unchanged, and we're really excited to see how the story continues and where it goes with everybody. So that is Heroes of the Veil. Then we do have PAX South. We're not going to be there physically, but we're going to be doing some things with Acquisitions Incorporated, so you can check that out January 18th through 20th. And then if you are local here in Huntsville, Alabama, we are, some of the members of the D&D Beyond team are going to be at the Huntsville Comic-Con at Low Mill on January 18th and 19th. So if you're local, come meet me, meet some of the team. We will be running some games and you can come play with us. So if you're here locally, keep that in mind. Let's see, 3 minutes. All right, let's give away a legendary bundle. Let's get this year started in the right way with a legendary bundle. So in order to qualify for this completely random giveaway, you have to type something in the chat. There has to be something that you type in the chat. It doesn't have to be the word something. It can be anything that you possibly want it to be. And I have to keep talking because I have to give everyone the chance through the stream delay to be sure that you got to enter into our completely random drawing. And we are going to draw that in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Chaotic Creative, congrats, you have won the first legendary bundle of 2019. Chaotic Creative, congratulations, you have won. Someone will get with you after the show to award that bundle. And let's see, do we have any other last minute questions in the 2 minutes that I have? Let's see, Myth Epic Weaver, will these monster summaries be viewable via oh, that was already there. Do we have any other questions? And we'll see if anybody has anything. Okay, Flash Fletch, I know that guy. How much sweet tea have you already had today? I am kind of jittery right now because I haven't had any sweet tea. And it's like right at lunchtime too. And so I'm going to like zoom straight out of this and just go connect it via IV after we get off the stream. Doom Rooster, how many requests for golden unicorns were submitted as a feature request during the course of this stream? I'm going to have to check that after the stream, and I cannot wait to go in and change their status to not planned. Any other questions? All right, questions have ended. I really appreciate everyone joining. Appreciate you being here with us today. All the questions, as always, very thoughtful. Appreciate you asking them. If anything did not get answered, hit me up on Twitter at Bad Eye Adam, and I will be happy to answer anything that I didn't get to today. We will see you next week with some other exciting things. If you have data requests, be sure to tweet those at me too, because we will look into some things and we always take those requests. Thanks a lot, folks. Have a good day.